Hey everybody, my name is Matthew, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to do a few really simple, easy text animations using Adobe After Effects. You go onto Adobe's website and you can sign up as a student, and depending on if you have a free code or if you want to just get the 60% off, you can download all the apps, and within that is After Effects. So we're going to jump into After Effects and go ahead and start the tutorial. So once you have After Effects downloaded and you open it up, you're gonna see this window right here. You're gonna select New Project over here on the left, and then it's gonna take you to this window. And from here, you're gonna select New Composition here in the middle. You can really name this whatever you want. For our purposes, I'm gonna name it Text Animation. And it's gonna come with a default preset of HDTV 1080 24p. That's going to be perfect for what we want to do, but if it's not, click this drop down menu, come down to HDTV 1080 24. The only thing you're really going to want to change is that if this duration is set to any crazy high number, then just come in here and change it to about anywhere from, just change it to 5 seconds. So I'm going to change it here 5 seconds. It was already there, but just to show you. 5 seconds is going to be all we're going to need for any of these animations, so that'll just keep our timeline trimmed. Press OK, because that's all we need to do there. And it's going to open up our timeline in our window here that we're going to be working in. So this right here is our composition. It's currently just a black background, so we need to add some text. There's two ways to do this primarily. The first way is to come up here to the horizontal type tool, or the shortcut for that is Control or Command if you're on a Mac, T. So Control T. It's going to open up this text tool. You're going to click on your composition here, and you're going to drag out a text box. And now you can pretty much type whatever you want. So we're going to type text animation. And if you're just opening this for the first time, you may find, like I just did, that the text is not showing up even though you were typing. And the reason for that is because by default the text color is black and our background is black. So to fix that, it's really simple. All we're going to do is Control or Command A to select everything that we just typed that we can't see. And then we're going to have to come over to this character tab here. If you do not see that, click on Window here and you find this character here, and just make sure that that's checked. If it's not, just select it. I'll go ahead and deselect it and reselect it for you. Then it shows up here on the right. You can drag it around if you'd like. And here we can change everything about our font. So the first thing we want to do, obviously, we want to set it away from black so we can actually see it. So over here we have a default black and white setting, so I'm just going to set to white here. So now we can see our text, which is great. If you want to change it to any color besides white, that's fine. Click on this big square and you can change it to whatever color you'd like to. For our purposes, I'm just going to keep it white. And then you can also choose your type font, your typeface here. I have this really cool font, Helvetica, selected, but you can select anything you want. You can go into Adobe Fonts once you have the Creative Cloud uploaded, and they have a ton of cool fonts. So just select one that you like. And then you can select your font size. Just make it not too big that it's taking up too much of your frame here in your composition, but also not too small that we're not going to be able to see it. And once you do that, then you're all good in character. And now we're going to come to this window. We're going to make sure that align is checked, because we're going to need that in 1 second. So just make sure that's checked. Mine is. It's going to be over here below character. Just select that. And this is going to allow us, because currently our text is super high and it's not centered at all, and it just doesn't look good. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to align it horizontally using this button here, and then we're also going to come over here and align it vertically. So all that did is it centered our text in the center of the frame, and it looks really great. It was super easy. If you want to see some guides just to double check to make sure that it really is in the center, choose down here to choose guide or choose grid and guide options. Select title/action safe, and these are going to be some safe guidelines for you. So as you can see, exactly in the middle. Alright, so now that we've got our text, we are going to start some animation. first thing we're going to do is, because we're going to have 4 different text animations we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this text animation layer down here on the bottom left, and to make sure that we have 4 different versions of it so that we don't have to delete our progress. So we're going to make sure that's selected by clicking on it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hold down Control or Command D, and that's going to duplicate it. So basically we just duplicated exactly what we had in the first layer onto the second one, and it's going to default name it Text Animation 2. So we're going to do that 2 more times. So Control or Command D. So now we have 4 text animation layers. One really important step is we want to make sure that the top 3 are going to be checked off. Reason being is because we don't want them to sit over top of what we're doing in the first layer. And we'll get to those later. So the very first animation that we're going to do, we're going to select this very bottom one that we still have checked on the eyeball here. And this is going to be just a simple reveal. And with all of these animations, they're going to be super basic just to kind of get you started. But they're also going to leave a lot of room for customization. So whatever I show you here, just simple keyframe animation, you're going to be able to customize them and do some really cool things if you spend more time on it. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started with this reveal here. So you're going to select this little drop down menu beside text animation. And over here to the right, you're going to see this, it says animate, and there's a little play button. Select the play button, and it'll open up this menu. Come down to opacity, select opacity. Once it's selected, you're going to see opacity and range selector show up under this animator 1. So opacity is just how much we can see through whatever object is placed in the composition. So if it's at 100%, we can see this text is, it's text, it's there, you can't see through it at all. It's whatever color we made it. But if we hold this and drag and go down, it gets more transparent until at 0, it's completely gone. And so that's all opacity is. And actually, for what we're going to do, we want our opacity to be set at 0 at the start. So to make sure you're at the start, over here, this is your timeline. You're going to click here and you can drag, just make sure you're at the very beginning. And then, like I said, drag this opacity all the way down to 0, or you can click on it, type 0, press enter. I know that seems a little counterintuitive, but we want it to start with nothing and then reveal the text. So next step is go over to this range selector 1, and we're going to select this little drop down menu. And from here, you're going to see a few selections here, but the very first thing we're going to do is come down here to advanced, and this shape here, we're going to change it from square to ramp up, and now you're going to see this text animation kind of pop up again. So if we play it, it's just going to kind of be sort of this gradient from light to dark. So the next step, you can kind of close that advanced tab. We're going to come back up to this range selector. From here, make sure at the beginning of your timeline, we're going to work with this offset. So we see this offset, we're going to come over to the left and we're going to click the stopwatch. What that's going to do is create a keyframe. So keyframing is essentially how we animate in Adobe After Effects. So what it's going to do is when you click that, you're going to see this little, this is a keyframe here on the timeline. It's basically just saying that at this point, at 0, 0, we want the text to look like this, but we don't want it to look like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag over here. Click out of this. We're going to drag this to -100, or you can again click and type -100, and as you can see, that makes the text go away. That's what we want. Now we're going to drag on our timeline over to let's say 1 second for our purposes, and we are going to change this offset value from -100 to just 100, positive 100. So now, as you can see, the text is fully revealed, and if we go back and we play that back, we can see that it creates this nice text reveal from left to right. So again, super simple. You can play around with this if you want it to be faster or slower. If you want, you can kind of mess around with where this keyframe is placed. If you want it to be faster, click on the keyframe and drag it inward so that the effect lasts for less time. So now if we drag it into here, it goes pretty fast. And if you want it to be long, we can drag it out to about 3 seconds, and super slow. But depending on what sort of effect you want to get, you can play around with this and do a lot of cool things. So for our next effect, we're going to come over here and we're going to close this drop-down menu for the first text animation. And then we are going to click on the eyeball over here because we don't want to see that one anymore. We want to see this text animation 2 layer. So go ahead and select text animation 2. Make sure that this is checked on so we can see it. And for this animation, we are going to be using the blur parameter. So we're going to drop down the menu. We're going to click over here and select animate and the little play button, just like we did last time. This time though, we're going to select blur from the menu. Okay, so once we do that, we're going to make sure our timeline's at the beginning, and we are going to start a keyframe the same way we did last time by selecting this little stopwatch next to the blur. So as you can see, it created a keyframe. And if we click and drag here on the blur, we can see that it's going to blur everything. So I find that for this effect, around 70 looks the best, but you can play around and make that value whatever you think looks the best. But once you get a nice blur going, go ahead and drag on your timeline over to about 1 second. And what we're going to do is we're going to click in here on the blur value and we're going to just select 0. And now when we play that back, it's going to start really blurred, whatever value you inputted. And it's going to slowly blur in. So that one's really nice just for sort of another sort of text reveal in a different way. I find that it actually looks a little better if we make it a little faster. So again, take this keyframe, drag it in. There you go, nice and quick and seamless. But yeah, so that's all for that one. So we're going to move on to the next animation. So we're going to close out this window here, or close on this drop-down menu, and click on the eyeball to hide it. And then we're going to select on text animation 3, make sure that it's visible. For this animation, we're basically going to combine what we've learned with the opacity and blur parameters. So we're going to open up this drop-down menu. We're going to select over here on the animate play button. We're going to select opacity, much like we did the very first time. Now we're going to drag on our timeline to the very beginning, 0 seconds, and we're going to go ahead and, just like we did the first time, drag this opacity down to 0%. And while we're over here, let's go next to this animator 1. You'll see this add button, or this play button next to the add, and we're going to select that, select property, and then come in here and we're going to select blur. So we just want to have that for a little later, but the first thing we're going to do is open up the range selector. And from here we're going to select select the time watch to put a keyframe at 0 seconds, make sure at 0 seconds, and keep that at 0%. Now we're going to drag over to about maybe 1 second to start out with. We're going to drag this from 0% all the way to 100. So now if you see, it's kind of just a very simple effect currently. We're going to do something to kind of spice it up. So we're going to come down into this advanced tab, and under here you're going to see this one option called random order. So right there, and it's already on off. We're going to click on it and it's going to turn it on. So what that's going to do, let me close down that drop down menu. If we play back that, it's going to do kind of an appear animation, but it's going to appear with in a random order and not just from left to right, which is pretty cool. The last thing we're going to do is incorporate that blur animation into this. So we're going to come down here to blur, and we are not going to keyframe this. All we're going to do is select on our values, and we're going to input something a little less than last time. Last time we wanted to stay around maybe 70. This time we're thinking maybe 40. So I'm going to press enter, come to the beginning, play that through, and as you can see, it sort of blurs in those letters as they come in, and then it straightens them out by the end of the animation, and everything looks nice and clean. Again, if you want to change how fast or how slow this animation occurs, use this keyframe here. We can make it really fast, or we can make it extremely slow, build some suspense. Really don't know what word's coming up there. For the last one, I'm going to show you a new technique, which basically we're going to create a mask and animate using the mask and our position parameter. So it's a little bit different, but this one is extremely customizable. There's some really cool things that you're able to do with it. Once you just know how to do the basics, you can kind of customize it however way you want. So we'll jump right in. So we're going to go ahead and close the drop-down menus for the text animation 3. We're going to hide that layer, and we're going to click up to this text animation 4. And we're going to make sure that's showing so we can see the text there. Let's drag back to 0 on our timeline, and the first thing that we're going to do is create a mask. So we're going to make sure that text animation 4 is selected. We're going to come here to this top bar, and we're going to select the rectangle tool, or Q, on your keyboard. And we're going to basically click and drag and create a rectangle around our text, making sure that the bottom of the mask comes just below our text. Just like that is perfect. Okay, and once we do that, what we're going to do is come down in our text animation, open up the drop down, select animate, and we are going to come and select position. So once we have position selected, what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to our Y position, over here under the range selector. We're going to select that, click and drag, and we're going to drag that to where it's no longer showing, because what we did with this mask is we basically created that rectangle and said, hey, we only want something that's inside of this rectangle to appear in the composition. Everything that's outside of it, hide it. So we're going to animate using that feature, but we're going to go ahead and, for right now, use this position, drag it all the way down below our mask to where you can no longer see the text anymore. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the range selector 1. We're going to use the offset parameter here. We're going to select a keyframe, and we are going to type in -100. That's going to kind of reset our text here, but that's okay for now. And then we're going to come over and drag to about 1 second for now. We're going to select our offset and select +100. Okay, so it looks kind of funky now, but what we're going to do is go under this advanced drop down, and we're going to come over to shape, and just like we did before, we're going to select ramp up, and that's automatically you're going to see your text has disappeared if you're at the beginning of your timeline. That's exactly what we want. So now when we play back this animation, it's going to slowly reveal kind of text by text left to right for us, which is a very cool animation. It's a bit slow for me right now. Maybe I want to speed that up a bit. That's easy. Remember, drag your keyframes in. That's really cool, but if you want to make that a little longer, of course that you can. That one's super slow, like an elevator. So the last thing I'm going to show you is how to actually export these text animations. So what you're going to want to do is, here we have our text animation 4 that we just completed. You're going to want to click that, come up here to File, find Export, and click Add to Render Queue. That's going to open up the render queue. You can leave the render settings at the best settings. The only thing you're really going to want to change is this output mode. You're going to want to click on Lossless. And within here you have a few options. So in format, you can pick whatever you like. QuickTime is a pretty standard format. And then down here, if you would like your animation to be rendered as with a transparent background so that you can overlay it on a clip, then you do that in here on where it says channels. You're going to select that, and instead of RGB, you're going to select RGB plus alpha. Then we're going to press OK, and then we're going to come over right here. It says toggle transparency grid. When we click that, it gives a transparent background. I know it's kind of hard to see with the white text, but this will just give us the text with no background behind it, which is really useful if you're going to use this in a different video. So once we do that, we can come over here, click back on the render queue. We've got our output module set, and then the last thing we're going to do is output 2. So if you click here, we can choose where we want to save this to. I'm just going to save mine to the desktop for simplicity's sake. So I'm going to do that, and then when you're ready to do it, you're going to press a render here, and it's going to render it out. And that's all you have to do. And then you have a transparent background text animation that you can put over any clip that you'd like. So there you have it. There's 4 different text animation techniques that are super simple that I think anyone can pick up and learn. If you're interested in After Effects at all, or motion graphics, or animation in general, I think that text is a really cool place to start learning different things, different techniques. I know that that's where I started, and these are some of the first techniques that I learned just by looking at other videos and tutorials online. So I hope that this was insightful. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that it inspires you to get creative and dive into After Effects and create something of your own. So thanks so much for watching.